Hey everybody, welcome to Should I Love with Jason Stewart. And today my guest is Stuart K Robinson. And that's my phone, as you guys know, because I sometimes forget to turn it off, and now I'm doing it. Oh, Corella Alonso. Christella, she used to have her own show. She just tweeted me. So that's my name dropping for the day. And last time it was Tiffany Haddish during the show. I met Stuart at a panel at the Screen Actors Guild AFTRA that my really, really dear friend, Lee Garlington, who's an actress, and you guys all know her, and an Emmy nominee now, and she was doing a panel on people who created their own path, basically, in the business. And you were the only non-actor there. You were an actor, though.
Right.
You own a commercial agency, one of the biggest ones, BBR. Mm-hmm. You're a motivational speaker, and you've written this incredible book, which I've read, called It All Begins with I, The New Rules of Thinking and the Simple Secrets to Loving a Rich, Joyous, and Fulfilled Life. And I think the first thing I would say is I was really impressed that you were in your own path, 100%. I mean, you really were in your own path 100%. There was no apologies for any of your opinions, and some of them were different than mine, which I really like. Oh, and also a big shout out in case his beautiful wife, his talented wife Maureen, is listening, who I actually went to high school with, correct, who was the most incredible singer and actress that I'd ever seen, and I thought, I want to be just like her when I grow up. She played the Anne Margaret role in Bye Bye Birdie. That's the first thing I remember seeing her that I loved. And I was just really impressed with that. So I guess my first question to you is, how did the transition from actor to being the head of this big CEO of this big agency, to motivational speaking, to writing books, to having this whole other separate career, what made you change?
It's a great question, and it's one of the most difficult questions. They're all connected, and I didn't know that until very late in my life, that they were all connected. I always thought that I was always told that you had to choose. You had to make a choice.
That's the way it was in our day. You had to do one thing or you were disrespected almost.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you want to be an actor, or do you want to be a writer, or do you want to be a composer, or do you want to be a singer, or do you want to be a director, or do you want to be an author? Which one? And I would always say I want to do them all, because I have a fascination for all of them, and I think they all fit into how I communicate my message. And of course everyone said, well, you can't do that, and come back to us when you've made a choice. And people would laughingly say, what do you really want to do when you grow up? And, I would say, I'm really good at a number of these things. I don't know how to choose one and reject all of the rest, because I get it that there are people who are interested in a lot of things, but I was above average at a lot of things. It was just a natural gift that I had.
I love that, because I would say, if somebody asked me, I'd say, I was always trailing behind. And I hear one of your videos, don't do this and don't say that and I have to, oh man, the Jason speak has got to stop.
And I want to talk about that today because I'm fascinated by you in that, every time I speak with you and I hear you speak, you really do sort of come from I'm from the land of broken toys, and somehow I've managed to stay afloat in this thing. And yet...
I'm from the land of broken toys. Okay, I have to go now, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, and this podcast is over.
But I look around this room that we're sitting in, and
we're in my home office.
We're in his home office, and there's lots of evidence of greatness. Things you've done, places you've been, people you've touched, jobs you have gotten. Even as we're talking, you tell me, Tiffany Haddish called in, and I have a show tonight, and I'm doing this, and I produced a thing with this, and I mentored this person, etc.
So we were talking before.
Yeah, it was an earlier conversation that we had. And so all I see is evidence that you have been and are and continue to make an impact upon other people, upon the industry, and upon our culture in general.
But I guess, not to interrupt you, but I probably will. Because I can't let you talk that nicely about me for that long.
You're right. Terrible.
You know, growing up being the son of a Holocaust survivor, not the camps. I always try to say, to be clear to people, my father actually lived in the kind of camps that Donald Trump calls summer school.
Right.
You know, for people. He was locked up in cages like that in the German American camp in Germany and in Russia, and he hid in people's farms and basements and attics, and he did that for most of his childhood. So when you grow up part of that, that's always a very I'm emotional about it out of nowhere.
Do it.
When you grow up from that, you it's really a deep part of who you are, and you're always taught not to be. Don't blow yourself up too big. Don't. And in this business, people, you know, don't like that too. My friend Tiffany, I've known her 20 years since she was a baby girl in the Laugh Factory Comedy Club, you know, and just the sweetest, craziest kid you'd ever believe, and just wanted to be a success. And I remember saying to her, "Now you can't be that dirty in your show, because people aren't going to want to hire you." I couldn't be, you know, that wrong. How wrong could I be? Pretty wrong. But don't ask me what to do to cross that level of success, because she obviously. You know, the right part, the right seeing, the right moment, the right time, you know, the right second. So that's part of the way I grew up, part of my upbringing, not to do that. And then also, you know, I think that, and a lot of people listening probably feel that way too. Don't puff yourself up too much in life.
Absolutely.
Be modest.
And I hear that, and you know, you'll learn a lot of things about me, but I do a number of things. And in my speaking recently, in a more religious setting, I was talking about the idea of superpowers. If anybody in the room could have a superpower, what would it be? And of course,
I love that.
At this service, some people said, "I like to fly," and someone said, "I want to be invisible," and "I want the iron fist," etc. And you know what I was saying was, wouldn't a great superpower be the ability to know the full story of the person opposite you when you first meet them? Because what we're talking about here is your story. And everybody has a story. Every person, the most successful in your view, the least successful, the most amazing, and the least amazing. Everybody has a story that has shaped their experience of this life. So we're all fighting against that story for the most part. But you talk about it in terms of puffing yourself up. And I don't think I'm looking for anyone to puff themselves up or puffing myself up. I'm just asking you to be really practical about what your gift is, so that you're able to use it as freely as possible.
And you talk about that in chapter 3. I will always do the highest thing.
Yeah, to
refer to your book.
Yeah,
I remember reading
the highest thing. What's the highest thing? The thing that's right, the thing that's fair, the thing that's honest, and best for everyone involved, yourself included. And that's where the Jason Stewarts of the world kind of missed the mark, because I'm sure you're always willing to do what's best for the people around you, even sometimes at the expense of Jason. So rather than puff yourself up, I'm just saying, know your strengths. Let's talk business. If we were buying a car, you wouldn't go in the car lot and say, "Look, what about this BMW here?" And you wouldn't expect the salesman to say, "Well, it's, you know, it's okay. I don't want to puff it up." No, you'd want them to tell you what's good about it, what kind of engine it has, what kind of luxury items it has, what kind of mileage it gets, etc. So if I were asking about Jason the car, what would you tell me?
I'd look over at you and you go, you'd be Stuart K Robinson of the car. You'd have like 6 cars that did 6 completely different things, and I'd have my 1 or 2 cars, and I would be doing those things well.
Yeah, probably.
I do more than that. Yeah.
Yes, you probably do more than that, and every person listening probably can name 5 things wrong about them, and then would have to dig to find those 1 or 2 things that are right about them, and when really that's not true. There are 100 great things about the car of you, listener. I'm looking at the microphone like I can see someone. But there are 100 great things about the car of you. And if you're not willing to
So that's a good
Recognize.
word. That's a really good word. Is I tell people that too. Not be willing. The willingness factor
Yeah.
is what, as I get older, and I do, and I'm assuming you deal with a lot of older people. You dealt with your son-in-law, and I was watching the Stephen Colbert show before you came here today. And your son-in-law is Leslie Odoms Jr., who won the Tony for Hamilton. It was on Rent on Broadway and in Murder on the Orient Express. And he, before this, after having a lot of success as a very good-looking, talented kid, getting into Rent, then all of a sudden you go through that thing where you have to change. And he's married to your beautiful daughter, who's on Broadway, Nicolette Robinson, who you might know from being on The Affair. You watch somebody when we go through transitions in our life, and he's a perfect example. And I didn't know that. It's so funny with you. I did not know that he was your son-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that you were married to Maureen, who I went to school with,
Right.
and or Claudia Sloan, who has a publishing company, who I'm talking to about my book. All these, and I talked to Claudia 2 years ago, or maybe it was a while back when I ran into both of them at a high school reunion. All this weird, and I shouldn't use the word weird, all this coincidence of fact. And I think that has to do with the word willingness, is being willing. And what was really interesting about what Leslie said on the show, and he attributed it to you, and of course you know what it is, the idea of being willing to do something every day for your career, and the thing that you love. And if you do love it enough to either work on your art, work on sending someone a letter or an email, calling someone, picking up the phone, waiting until they're available, having whatever it would be.
Yeah. What I told him when he sat me down one day and said, I'm going to quit the business because this is just too difficult.
He probably wanted to have a family.
He wanted to have a family.
And thought, how am I going to do this?
Seeing a certain age. And, this is someone who's had a pretty decent amount of success in his life. But he just didn't like the ups and downs of it, and he didn't feel he was in control of his future. And he thought he could be more in control of his future with a 9-to-5 job, like working in a hotel or at a theater or in a restaurant or something. And what I said is the same thing I would say to anyone. I would say, great. If that's your decision, if that's really what you think your path should be, I support that, and I'm here for you. But I'd really love to see you try before you quit. And of course, his reaction is the same thing everybody else. I'm trying every day.
But you said to him, I don't know if I'm interrupting you, but if you remember saying that, you said to him, when was the last time you sang?
You have all these gifts. How often do you sing? I can name you 20 places who would let you come in and sing tonight. Would they pay you? Not necessarily at first, but once you get a following and an audience and you build a reputation, something can come of that. Who did you call today? Who do you know that could help you open a door to move forward with your career that you know could help you, but you're saying, well, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to put myself in the position of asking. Well, if you're asking for something, it means you're not doing enough anyway. You're providing an opportunity. Who do you know that could really benefit from your gift, what you do? And then I'm going to take you full circle back and say, unless you're willing to state what your gift is, unless you really know what you do, that's pretty wonderful. How can you expect anyone else to buy into that? So if you're not constantly in a state where you're really trying, I call it not trying harder, because we all try hard. I call it trying better. Try better. Take advantage of the business opportunities in front of you and be willing to own the gifts that you possess. If you don't have those gifts, go back to school. Get them. Practice more. Get in class. Do more freebies. Do more of whatever it takes. Get yourself up and moving. Any area that you feel you're deficient, get better or move on to the next thing. But if you have things that are solid and desirable and beneficial, try better. And, Leslie credits me, but he's an amazingly gifted, talented, thoughtful, kind human being. he would have been a success no matter what he did. But what he credits is that talk reminded him that it's easy to get jaded about yourself and about your career and about your path, and you have to keep coming at it with a fresh enthusiasm. And I'm grateful that he was able to hear me, and I hope that your listeners are able to hear me, because this isn't about saying work harder. This is about work better, work smarter, and be more in ownership of what you do.
So just to remind people that are listening to this, it's called It All Begins with I, and it's available on Amazon. And I'm looking at the page now, and while you were doing this, I hope you weren't thinking I was being rude, but I was looking at the reviews and what people were writing about. And it wasn't just people in show business. There was a Catholic school teacher that wrote this incredible review of what, and it wasn't just a review, it was about her experience in reading the book and how it moved her to the next place in her life, in her teachings, and teaching the kids in school. And people that were inspired by the book, people that loved your personal style, and it felt like it was a personal conversation. And I think I always like to thank Jacqueline Suzanne for that, because she was the first person to write a book as if she was like talking to you. Or Truman Capote, who was the first person to write a book where he was in the book. Yeah. And he was actually a character within the story. Yeah. And I think that, I guess the thing that, and I'll play devil's advocate here, the first thing that comes to my mind, and I'll use myself in order for people to not think that to make this more personal. I thought a lot about this today, whether I was going to do myself or not, and put myself in the position of being vulnerable. I often feel that because I'm not as good looking as Leslie, I'm not as straight as Leslie, I don't, I didn't come from a family where people held me up in that way. So what do you say to those people like me who, even though, and I'll tell you, I do not live in that. I don't live in the past. I don't live in what happened to me in high school. That is not my story. I actually said to my recently ex-boyfriend, I actually said to him, when I met him, I said, look, I don't trust people, and I had a really bad childhood. And then after 3 weeks later, I said, I'm wrong. I do trust people, and I can't even remember my childhood. It was so long ago. So that isn't me, but there's a certain repetition of knowing how to, about the way you do things and wanting to do things differently. How do you get off that street? And there's many people listening here that probably feel like there's a street that once we get on, we can't get off of it. How do you do that? Because I get stuck on it sometimes.
Yeah, it's an interesting measuring stick you have of measuring how good looking you are versus how good looking this person is, etc. I don't know how you measure that. I don't know how you even can.
Then I'll be more clear about what people consider good looking in our business. In magazines and films and television, there's a certain kind of person and that looks a certain way. Yeah. It gets to work and they get to make more money too, because if you look at network shows where the most money is made, most of the people look very patrician, Christian. They have they look European. They're a certain weight, they're a certain height, they're a certain body type, and even if they're of color, they look more white. And if you look more, even for people of color, there's a certain look of those people, and those on the biggest shows make the most money. So that's
okay. Let's approach that, because certainly there is a prototype.
That isn't the truth, I don't believe. I think it's the industry's truth, not the truth
correct.
of the world.
It's the industry's truth, and it's a crazy idea. So let's say you're not Brad Pitt. Let's use that as an example. My approach to this business is every time Brad Pitt works, every time one Brad Pitt works, there are 15 Jason Stewarts surrounding him. His professor, his boss, his coworker, the guy who sold him the gun, and on and on and on and on.
Right.
So, yes, as an agency owner, I have to tell people, yes, if you're not 18 years old and beautiful and a certain type, this path is going to be more challenging, because the industry opens its arms to that 18-year-old white beauty. and we could get off on another tangent that everybody's telling me now that white is out, and
Someone said that to me the other day, and I said, "Well, not 100%.
No, it's not out.
It's still, if somebody looks like a person of color, and you look like your tribe, whatever that would be. I mean, there are black people that say to me all the time that I look like I'm half black.
Huh?
And there are people who are Latin that say I look Cuban.
Interesting.
And then my own Jewish people sometimes know that I'm Jewish and Russian, Polish.
Yeah.
But there's a perception of whatever it is. And then white people look at me and say, people say that? No, I don't believe that for a minute.
Yeah.
So I have what I call an ambiguous look to people.
Absolutely.
And I am totally comfortable with being a character actor. That's what I want to be.
Absolutely.
I don't want to be Brad Pitt.
And I'm not. So my point here is that, yeah, it's going to be a little tougher. So what? Don't be afraid of tough. Do what you got to do anyway and get one of those 15 opportunities when Brad Pitt is working once and continue to build upon that. I'm not saying the industry is fair, but I'm saying we got to win anyway. We've got to find ways to try better and overcome the obstacles that are in front of us. Yes, it is a disadvantage to be in any other group except those prototypical Hollywood accepted groups. It's a disadvantage. It cannot be a stopper. It can't be a stopper.
But then I'll give you a word to judge. I don't think it's a disadvantage. I think what it has to do, and now I'm going to put on my actor hat. You can put on your agent hat.
Good.
I think what it has to do with is the idea of where your place is in the business. Mm-hmm. And there are people who are character actors who the more successful one becomes, have had to change that paradigm. If you become successful when you're younger, certainly you have, like if I had a series in the 80s, I would be that guy who had the series in the 80s. And then I wouldn't have, then I would be able to compete at a better level with the people in my age group. But since I didn't, because I was a gay kid and I couldn't get arrested, you know, I was actually told to my face. You know, and I remember the quote that Laurence Olivier said in his book, and I think I'm paraphrasing it, but he said the worst thing to do is to show people who you are for them not to see it. And I don't know if I made it better or what, but that's what I remember it to be. Yeah. And I think that it's changing the paradigm of the people that you work with. Sure. And that's what I've tried to do because I don't have that.
And you've done it.
I'm never going to have that.
I was thinking on the way here today, who was it that saw in you the potential to play the role you played in Birth of a Nation?
The first person was a Southern woman who owned an agency called Brenda Nussbaumer, who owns an agency called Open Range Management, but it's an agent, not a management company. That's what they call it there.
Yeah, right.
And she did not, first thing she said, you know, I remember I met with her 5 years ago and I said, I want to play bigger roles. I want to have more chances because around in 2005, I had gotten 2 supporting roles in 2 feature films, one called Coffee Date and one called, which was a little gay movie with Sally Kirkland, Jonathan Silverman, Wilson Cruz, and some Debbie Gibson. And then the next week, I had gotten a part in a film that Mekhi Phifer had directed called Puff Puff Pass. And it was filled with every great comedian. I had like 12 scenes and 10 or 12 scenes in both the films. So my career changed then, and I wanted to keep that path. But of course, it didn't happen as much as I would like it to because those films were successful, but not enough. Right. So I had researched and researched and researched, and I thought I had gotten agents all over the country, and most of them did very little. Sure. And then this gal started stepping up to the plate and asked to handle me exclusively for this area. And she sent me this audition, and I said, this is insane. You know, I remember getting it going. For those who don't know, I played a white heterosexual Christian plantation owner in 1831. Right. And I had to do it very quickly. I had someone come over here in the morning. I was doing a stand-up thing that night, and I did the tape right here in my own home, which I do. Yeah. And when I got the audition, I'll speed through it. When I got the audition, I went and I met Nate Parker. And I originally met, and Nate wasn't as big of a star then. The movie Beyond the Lights had just come out, but I didn't really know who he was. And then I'd seen him at Arbitrage, and I met him in the parking lot. Yeah, because I was there 3 hours early, walking around saying the N-word, trying to become comfortable.
You and everybody else.
Yes, and then he looked at me, and said something, and I honestly don't remember what he said, and I just went, it's going to be okay, because I hate meeting people first times. I'm not a first day of school has never been comfortable for me, and went in, read it. He asked me if I could be a little funny during doing it because I wasn't as funny the first time through,
Yeah.
and I said,
Can I be
can
funny?
I roller skate? And I did it. I said thank you very much, and I left. And I thought I'd never heard with him. I was pleased with what I did, but I thought I'll never hear from him. And then he changed my life.
Yes. So what I want to say is, so I mean, for everybody who's listening, that's the story.
That's 3 years ago.
That's the story that allows us to keep going. Because,
but it's a 10-year story.
Sure.
It wasn't a story. It really is even a longer story than that.
Yes, I get that. But
Yeah.
with all due respect, very few of your listeners would look at you as I'm looking at you today and say, this guy should play the role of
a plantation.
The plantation,
a
owner,
racist,
The fact that more than one person was not only able to see that possibility in you, but able to encourage it and nurture it and partner with you to create a really powerful and solid and compelling, convincing performance, that's the hope for all of us. That's the hope that regardless of what your physical exterior
for those
is,
at home, that's the way someone says without saying it that he has watched your work, without telling you right directly. That was sort of like around the corner.
Yeah, around the way. Because the point is that that's kicking the door open.
I didn't know it though at the time. Honestly.
Of course you didn't know it. But that's my point, that it's not always going to feel like you're kicking the door open when you're kicking the door open. But that fact that someone can see that in you tells me that someone can see me playing the President of the United States or whatever it is. That's a big milestone for someone in my position, that someone would even consider you for the President of the United States. My daughter is on Broadway right now, living out an incredible dream. When she first heard the score to the Broadway show Waitress,
which is based on a little independent film that Kerry Russell had done right after Felicity. And Kerry Russell is a white girl, and your daughter is a biracial girl.
Right. So she fell in love with that score and that show, and she never dared to dream that she would ever get to play that role because she's of mixed race. She automatically assumed that she was excluded from that couldn't be a part of her dream, that she had to dream about Aida and she had to dream about, those kinds of projects. And so for the producers of Waitress to extend that opportunity
so tell the folks how that went down for
her. It went down, she's been working
her name
constantly.
is
Nicolette Robinson. She's been working constantly in New York City, off-Broadway, doing this reading and this workshop and this production and this show and making a name for herself and working with all of the top people. So she had worked with Diane Paulus, who's the director of Waitress. But again, Nicolette never dared dream that she could hope for the chance to play a role like that. So the producers of Waitress saw that opportunity and extended it, and now she's living a dream. So all that stuff.
So it came to her by showing up
up everywhere else, by trying better, by not sitting back and saying, "Oh, this is too hard," and "Oh, I'll never be able to do this," and giving up. But really saying, "I'm going to show up wherever and whenever I can and prove myself worthy." And she is on Broadway, just killing that role. And this is not Proud Dad. This is a guy who's been in the theater since...
And the reviews say it.
And
because the show was re-reviewed when she joined it. She's the lead.
She is the lead.
She's playing the leading role. I want to make sure I didn't make a mistake. And that's from the Dad Who Wrote Begins with I, available now on Amazon.
Yeah, so everybody listening has a dream that they don't dare to dream. And, just from the short time we spent together, I know that Jason Stewart has 1,000 dreams he has not dared to dream. But you've proven with Birth of a Nation, and probably 10 other projects, that there is more to you than the assumptions would indicate. So the day that you truly believe that and believe in that and act accordingly, more and more layers of that change
So
will come to
what do you say to the person who's listening to this now? Remember the song "Mama Says There's Going to Be Days Like That"?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when that day comes along? When you're, I remember there was a movie called "As Good as It Gets." It was called Best Friends, I believe, and I wanted that part, the Greg Kinnear part. It was at the height. I'd come out on Geraldo's show in 1993. They were making the movie in 1997. I said to my manager, I got that script. I don't remember how I got it because I had a friend who worked at the Laugh Factory where I'm working tonight. This will be probably shown tomorrow, the next day. But and I remember how she would send me scripts and I would read them. And she said, "There's a part for you in this." And I read this script, and it was a much darker film than it was than the film that James Brooks had rewritten and done. And I remember, this is how crazy I wanted that part. I fired a manager because he wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. This is when we fax things. I found it I forgot, I think it was MGM who did it, I think. And I found a stationery at MGM, and I wrote a letter from somebody who worked at MGM to the casting director and signed his name so you couldn't read it, and faxed it to her.
You must see Jason Stewart.
Yes, this guy is perfect for this.
Yes, I love that.
And I later got a role for it, and later got auditioned for it, and I later heard there was a monologue that I did that was not in the film. They cut out that I auditioned with, and I later heard through Francine Maisler, I believe it was, who cast it, through Brian Singer, that I had read for that role and that she liked that I did it, and I didn't get it. And then I heard that it was a deal, it was a package deal of Jack Nicholson, Helen Hunt, and Greg Kinnear at ICM, or one of the big three-letter agencies, and there was no...
Beyond your control.
Totally. So it was completely devastating to me at the time. Mm-hmm. And it stopped me in my tracks of where I would, the trajectory where I thought I should be and where I wanted. So what do you say to that person
I can
who
answer
has
that
these
question.
experiences?
Yes. Yeah. I can say that what we tend to do, because I have experienced those devastating near misses.
When you really step up, you will, risk.
100% there. I'm trying better. I'm doing everything I can. And something is beyond my control. First of all, you have to be... realistic about the fact that there are things that are beyond your control, and you must turn your focus to the things that are within your control. Are you doing everything you can about the things you can control? However, what most people, artists, business people, people in relationships, etc., do is over time they teach themselves to become less excited about things. I'm just not going to care anymore. There's even teachers who advise, you got to not care about this business. That's when you succeed. That is the worst advice I can imagine giving anyone. You can't not care. What you got to do is, rather than get better at not caring, get better at dealing with disappointment. Because disappointments are going to come. Don't not swim because you're afraid of the water. Become a better lifeguard. Be better at rescuing yourself from that darkness, depression, disappointment, despair. Wow, 4 Ds. That come from those losses. And get back up on your feet and do something more. Don't get better at not caring. Get better at caring and dealing with the disappointment of not getting it. Because soon you will get. Were you as good when you got Birth of a Nation at celebrating that and nurturing that and valuing that and appreciating that as you are at celebrating the losses when you don't get something?
I have to say, if you watch me online, at Sundance, there's a video of the film getting a standing ovation, and of Nate Parker. And it was sort of a unprecedented thing where he invited the entire cast, crew. I don't know if you knew that. It was a big deal because Sundance, they're very careful about who they ask to come to the stage.
I understand.
And I had been there with 2 other films before where I had smaller roles and I wasn't asked to the stage. But this particular film, I had a much larger role, but yet everybody was on the stage, no matter how small the role, how big it was, producer, writer, assistants. I mean, everybody was on stage. It was this incredible moment. And you see me, what all I keep doing is I think I'm wearing the wrong outfit. I feel I'm just very, it was really hard for me to stay in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I felt, it was very hard for me to stay in the joy of that.
Yes.
And I see the moment that it was hard because it was so completely unexpected and it's something I'd never done before. There's so much of the other to get to this point.
Yeah.
You know.
And I would tell your listeners, I don't care what's difficult. You got to do it anyway. It's just a really fascinating.
Well, you could see me fighting with myself.
Yeah, you see you
and
fighting
I did.
with yourself.
Yes.
And that's what you've got to put your energy toward fixing, because it's that acceptance.
When we got to Canada to TIFF, I was able to sit there and I liked what I was wearing.
Because somebody's sitting at home by their computer or wherever they are saying, well, poor Jason, in his third time at Sundance, he had a hard time accepting the enormity of what's happening. And they're saying, I haven't even been to the Culver City Film Festival. It's all relative, and it's worth noting that every
it's
person...
interesting that you say it like that. I just want to take that moment.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it that way.
Of course you did.
I think that chapter number 4, I will make every effort to view all challenges from a new perspective by seeing them in a different way. This is chapter 4 of the book. Yeah. It all begins with I. Because I'm remembering the chapters as I read them, but I don't remember which one did what.
Yeah.
But that's true, is trying to see things from a different view. It's a practice.
What you need to know is that Nate Parker was struggling with something at that same event. And Robert Redford was struggling with something at that same event. Those struggles are not specific to you and to me, etc. Everybody's got a story and everybody's having a hard time. But at the end of the day, you've got to own what you do, and you've got to celebrate the victories, celebrate your gifts, celebrate the possibilities as passionately as you celebrate the losses and the slights and the unfair things that happen in your life. We're just really good. I can remember the day I jumped on a plane and flew to somewhere because I had lost out on the misadventures of Wally Brown. I was up for the lead in the misadventures. I knew you were saying, what's that? It was what I thought
was your it.
That was my ship that was coming in, and I just needed to book this role. And you know how they do when you do a pilot, they negotiate your deal up front. So I knew I was going to be making
I don't know, because
$1,000 a week, and it was going to be great. And I just thought coming in second on this role was the end of the world. So I went to, I don't know where I went, Washington State, and sat on a mountaintop and wept and felt sorry for myself, etc. As it turned out, it never went to series, it was never heard of, it never did anything, etc. But to me...
So wait, are you saying that it's okay to feel your feelings? How long can... Because I give myself a day, usually, to feel bad about something. I usually try to do it in an hour or something, but then I give myself a little time to feel bad about it, because I never used to do that.
Yes, feel bad about it. That's what I'm saying. Get better at dealing with disappointment. Allow yourself to grieve
that it is
the
okay.
thing that you lost. It's okay. As long as you don't let it start changing your attitudes about who you are, what you do, and whether you have a place in this business.
This is one I loved. I will make decisions. This is chapter 5. I will make decisions based upon what I love rather than what I fear. And that was a big. I have not, when I read your book, I had not had didn't know anything about it. But that's a big deal for me, because the fear was so big, because it was so instilled upon me. And I'll bring it to something sort of present. When I was watching 2020 on Friday with Melania Trump talking about bullying being her big cause, and then to have a husband who is one of the biggest bullies in this country in terms of his Twitter feed and his rallies and his speak. And the idea of that in bullying for me was so big as a kid. It was such a big thing that it became the natural fear
Yeah.
was so a part of who I was as a person, not even knowing it. So there are people at home that probably have fears about things that don't even know that. Sometimes you don't even know why you're thinking less for yourself.
Yeah. First of all, let me go back a little bit. We went to the same high school, you and I, not at the same time.
Right, a different time.
I went before you. We
don't have to talk about the years, do we?
No, we don't.
Thank you so much.
Completely different experiences of high school.
Right.
I was as popular a kid at that school as you can be. I was the student body president. I was captain of several of the sports teams. I was chairman of every association in the city, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Nonetheless, I was bullied relentlessly.
And can I say, an African American man, or black man at the time, that's what we called in the 70s.
In the 70s.
Which is probably, I mean, in our school was Fairfax High,
yeah.
And our school at that time was considered the most multiracial school. Do you remember? We would get awards for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
So I was bullied by the black kids because I was friendly with the white kids. I was bullied by the white kids because I wasn't a white kid. Mm-hmm. I was bullied by, the kids who weren't popular because I was popular.
I always have a theory that it's your parents, that your parents held you up.
Held me up? Held me.
That's a phrase that Nate Parker, I took from him because during Birth of a Nation, there was this feeling of being so held up that I had never felt. Maybe it had happened, but I just never felt it this way. And I felt that I had found my people in that group. That I had found because they were about the art, they were about the history, but they were about yet the history at the same time as the art, about moving forward and not living in that, and to hold each other up no matter who you are, no matter what you were. And in every speech that he ever said anywhere, it was always incredibly inclusive. And that just, without a hesitation, without a qualification, without a lowering of your voice or saying, when we grew up, you'd hear them say gay people or don't say anything about the blacks, or it was always hushed. And there was something about the way he created that environment that changed, that changed me as a human being. So if nothing ever happened from the movie in terms of career-wise, it was monumental to me in terms of being a part of something and being treated as this the same.
The same, yeah. Yes, and I'm going to go back because when we talk about fear, people tend to misunderstand that and they think I'm talking about I'm afraid to skydive, but the fear that you have lived with, or
it's fear of
much
place,
of your life, fear of place, and fear of what others are thinking. You described your Sundance thing. I'm in the wrong outfit. That just means that you're thinking people are looking at you and saying, what's he wearing? And oh my God, and this is horrible. I'm afraid to send this thing to MGM because what the casting directors will blacklist me. I'm afraid to approach this person who can help me because they're going to think I'm a moocher and a bother, etc. All of these things you're afraid to do because of what other people will think. As though you can control what other people will think. As though what other people think really has an impact. The biggest revelation you'll get, because people always talk to me and say, so what's it like to have succeeded in the business? And of course, I'm like, what? Me? Success? But at the end of the day, what you're going to find out is nobody's thinking about you. Nobody's thinking about what you're wearing, and if they are, they're thinking about the wrong thing at Sundance. Nobody's harboring any ill thoughts. I was scared to go to my high school reunion. And I'm going to talk a little about you out of school. I think my wife always thought that you didn't like her.
Oh.
And
that's so funny because I was always afraid of her.
Of course.
She was like the queen of our theater department.
Super talented and
I mean, just
up on a pedestal.
And I'll tell you why. When I was in, this is so strange, and you can tell the rest of it. I'll tell the beginning of the score. That's so funny that she would think that. But I remember when I was in John Bros Junior High School, I did the play Harvey,
Mm-hmm.
and I played the cab driver.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one girl in my class who said, "Oh, there's Jason Stewart. He, he. What did she used the word, and I hate using this word, but I'll use it for the." She said, "Oh, he looks like a fag in the play," and I never did another school play after that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I made up this story that I was in a professional acting class and I wouldn't do that, and I wondered, and I always would watch Maureen and watch a lot of the others in the thing, and God, that she felt that that I didn't like her.
Mm-hmm.
That was the exact opposite.
Of course.
Why did she feel that? Oh gosh.
I don't know. I don't know. She probably felt your fear of her and interpreted it as indifference or aggression distance. Or condescend. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't there, but that's what happens. You're dealing with whatever your story is, and you give me a look, and then I interpret that look and say, "Oh, he thinks he's better than me," or "Oh, he thinks I don't belong here," or "Oh, he thinks that I messed up," etc. And now I begin to build a story based on a look that you gave me that's about your story.
And a major regret for me, honestly, for not. That's why I say I wish someone would have held me up and told me and showed me the way, because I stopped doing that, and I left a large part of my growth as an artist was left out because I didn't get to work with all those kids in school. I didn't get to be in that. I was afraid
because of your fear of what others are thinking. And who was it that said years ago, what everybody else thinks of you
is none of my business.
Is none of your business, because you can't quantify it. And it's so
then I
complex.
have to call Maureen. We have to talk.
All right, call her.
We have to have this chat.
Tell her that you liked her. You liked me.
I know. It's not I liked her. I held her to such high esteem.
Yeah, and you just never know that, because
something I couldn't touch. His wife, Maureen Bernard, or Maureen Robinson, whatever she's using. I don't know what name she's using now. She was just so gifted.
Yes. And dealing with her own story.
Of course.
As is every person in the row. So put your story aside. Don't worry about what people are thinking. And do, as you mentioned, chapter 5, I don't know that number.
That was 5.
Do
yes. 5 really resonated.
Make your choices based on what you love. So if you're at Sundance wearing
the wrong outfit,
golf pants and a tank top.
No, I wore a plaid shirt with jeans and it was fine, and a turtleneck, but it was freezing cold. I could not. It was so funny because it was a day that I could not decide what to wear to this thing. I couldn't. I was so nervous and excited for this to taking this.
So
all the way
my advice is wear what you love. But don't base what you love on what other people are going to think of it. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, which of these outfits do I love? Which of these career paths do I love? Which of these relationships do I see myself loving being in? Make that decision and deal with the...
But that's chapter 7. If I can fix a situation, I'll get it to work. If I cannot, I will allow it and release it.
Yeah, if I can fix a situation, I'm going to get to work fixing it. Right now.
Right.
Because that's something I can do something about. If
and
I
that's
can fix this,
in the book. It all begins with I, available on Amazon if anybody's listening to this. In the middle of
and I love the response I get from the book, because people tell me they don't read it all at once. They read it a little bit at a time, and then they come back. And
that's how
happens.
I did.
Good.
Yeah.
They come back and they go, oh, that's what that... And then they reread that chapter. So if you can do something about it, get to work fixing it. If you can't do anything about it, move on. There's no more futility than trying to change.
But isn't there another thing? Sometimes you need to put something aside and go, okay, it's like jokes. I think I'm very funny, and anything I say is funny. And sometimes I just can't figure out how to set it up so the audience will understand. So I have a file. I stick the joke in there, and I come back to it another time.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just not ready. Maybe I don't know how. And then I also find that, I don't know if you find this, like I talk to a lot of other LGBT actors and performers and singers and comedians, and I say, if you want to do something different, if you want to, and maybe you do too, if you want to be something different, you have to know who you are and know how to, and have done the homework. You can't just show up and expect somebody to see you without knowing it, especially if you're different.
Sure.
And you have to create those opportunities. So when somebody looks at your videos or looks at you or sees you audition or hears you sing or hears you tell a joke, you have to actually have done the work. It's not like Kim Kardashian taking a picture of her butt or, or her husband acting crazy. That's not the way it works.
Yeah. See, for me,
you have to do the homework.
As a performer, as a writer, as a singer, as a composer, as a business person, as an agency owner, etc., I don't want any jobs I don't deserve. I'm not hoping to fool anybody into hiring me. And, oh, God, thank God I didn't get. So the jobs that I don't deserve, that I haven't done the work and haven't really shown up 100% to claim, I'm willing to let those go. So that involves, though, having a feeling of the jobs you do deserve.
So knowing if something doesn't have your name on it. Now, how do you know that?
I gauge it again by my effort. I don't gauge it by whether I'm right for it. I'm going to assume I'm right for everything.
So I'll give an example of this. The other day, my agent had called me and said, there's this part, it's a guest starring role in this so-and-so show. And I looked at it and I said, this says Italian all over it. He said, yeah, but they don't care how great the Italian accent is. I said, well, I do. And then they said, well, they want you to actually speak in Italian. And I had an Italian boyfriend, and it's a very difficult language. And I thought, I can't do this well. And they're calling me in. So I would rather not go in and do something badly. I said, I can't do something well in this short amount of time, in this space, and I would rather not do it.
Yes. And you just mentioned another one of my chapters.
Oh, which was?
Which is that everyone in the industry and everyone in life is going to have advice for you. They're going to tell you, don't do this, and always do this, and never do that. And my rule is take every piece of advice that was given to you that includes the word don't or never. Believe it, but add the word badly at the end. So you stuck your neck out and got a piece of MGM stationery and created a thing and said, see this guy. That's a little ballsy.
Yeah, I did a lot of things like that. And I'm sure there are people who still to this day don't like me.
Sure, absolutely. And all I'm going to say is the rule is not to not do those things. The rule is to not do it badly. Never approach strangers. Here's one from the industry. Never drop off submissions in person. That's what everybody says. Never do that because you'll bother them. And
we used to do it all the time. We called it rounds in the day.
So I'm going to say the rule actually is never drop off submissions in person badly. If you do it well, the person says, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you. And hey, in fact, why don't you sign in right now? We're doing something that's right for you. If you do it badly, you bother them and you annoy them and you seem sketchy and they're in the middle of something, etc. So the rule isn't don't do it. The rule is don't do it badly.
And then on the other hand of it, there's sometimes you can think you're going to be doing it well, going with the best intentions, and it's just whatever that is going on in that person's life that day. Most of the time, it has nothing to do with you.
And if you do it badly, if there's a bad reaction, I have advice for that.
What's that? Tell us.
Apologize. Honestly. Honestly say to the person, I never set out to cause you harm. How can I make it up to you? That person, still in the middle of the upset, may react however they react. But apologize. Make up for it. You can't not do things because you're afraid you're going to do it badly. You got to do things. And if you sense in any way you've done it badly, apologize.
Of course.
And then do another thing and another thing. That's the key to trying better. I don't know if you'll ever feel 100% ready for every opportunity. I can only measure, again, how hard I've worked, how much I love what I'm doing in the thing. So again, making choices from love rather than from fear. If I make choices because I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up, I'm afraid I'm going to offend someone, I'm afraid I'm going to let someone down, you'll never do anything. Choose the thing you love, do it the best you can, and if you do it badly, just say I'm sorry.
Well, that's a great way to end.
Yes.
That's a
So
great
if
way
I've
to end.
done this badly in any way, I apologize. But
Well, if I've done it badly, I apologize too, but I think I've done a good job.
I think you did. Thanks
So
for
if people
having
want
me.
to get your book, of course, they can go to Amazon.
Yeah.
If they forget your name, which is Stuart K Robinson, you can always go to jasonstewart.com, Stuart, send me an email, and I will put you in the right direction to get Stuart's book, which is available on Amazon. I thank you so much for taking the time, and I know you're really busy in your day to come. Thank you so much. If people want to get a hold of you, just go. You can also, your name is an actual website,
Absolutely.
Stuart K Robinson. And for the rest of you, everybody, take care until next time.